Casanova. Okay, so when you hear that name, the first thing that probably pops into your head is, the legendary seducer, right?
Almost instantly, yeah. That's the reputation.
But what if that's, well, just scratching the surface, what if there's this whole other side? A writer, an adventurer, someone who actually really understood people.
Exactly. And that's what we want to dig into today.
Yeah, so our mission here isn't to get bogged down in just the scandals or the myth. We're doing a deep dive to see what we can uncover about, well, human connection.
Mm-hmm. And maybe find some surprising insights that, still ring true for you today.
So this isn't just a history lesson then?
Not at all. I mean, yes, he lived centuries ago, a totally different world, but how he interacted with people, his grasp of what drew them in, there are some really fascinating, maybe even useful lessons there about human nature.
Okay. Well, we should probably say up front, we're not, endorsing everything he did.
Oh, absolutely not. We're looking at it through a modern lens, of course. But the goal is to explore what made him so effective at connecting. We're drawing on his own writings, his huge memoir, and what others wrote about him.
Right.
To try and get past that surface level image, what really set him apart, and what can you maybe learn from his approach, especially when it comes to making, real connections in a world that often feels pretty superficial.
Okay, so first step, beyond the womanizer. That's the big label we need to look past. Because for most people, that is the whole story. But the information we have suggests, well, a lot more.
It really does. It wasn't all just fleeting encounters. I mean, the man wrote constantly. His memoir alone is enormous. It gives you this incredible window to his life, his thoughts, the society around him.
And he wasn't just sitting in a room writing. He was out there, wasn't he?
Constantly. An adventurer, traveled all over Europe, met people from every single level of society. And importantly, he was known as a brilliant conversationalist. He could hold his own with, intellectuals, artists, royalty.
So clearly intelligent, not just charm.
Definitely. Sharp intellect, yes, but also what seems like a genuine curiosity about the people he met. And maybe the more surprising part, underneath it all, there are hints of this real longing for actual affection, for connection that went deeper than just the physical.
That longing, that's interesting. Where might that have come from, his early life?
I gather it wasn't exactly stable.
That seems to be a really critical piece, yeah. His childhood was, well, pretty difficult. Father died when he was young. His mother was an actress, so she was away a lot. He ended up being raised mainly by his grandmother.
Oh, okay.
And you can imagine those kinds of early experiences, that potential feeling of abandonment. It likely left a mark. It could easily fuel a lifelong sort of search for intimacy, for validation, for that connection he missed out on.
So it's like his famous charm, his intelligence, they weren't just tools for romance. They might have been fundamental survival skills, almost. Ways to navigate the world and get that connection he craved. I think that's a really insightful way to put it. The evidence suggests his ability to truly connect, to understand people's emotions, their desires. That was key, not just for relationships, but for, getting by, gaining access, moving through all those different social circles. It was maybe as much about survival as it was about seduction.
And that approach, that focus on deep connection, it feels quite different from how a lot of interactions happen today.
Oh, definitely. Which brings us right to how modern approaches sometimes, fall short. And one big theme that comes up is patience. Or the lack of it.
Right. In our world, everything's instant, isn't it?
Exactly. Instant coffee, instant messages, attempts at connection on dating apps. There's this expectation of speed, of immediate results. Get the match, get the reply, meet up quickly.
And the actual process of letting something grow, that emotional intimacy, it gets lost.
It often does. It gets bypassed in the rush. The sources really highlight the struggle with patience, particularly in romance. But genuine intimacy, that feeling of really knowing someone and being known, you just can't force that. It needs time. It needs space to breathe and develop naturally.
And alongside that impatience, there's this other idea that comes through a kind of self-centeredness. Not necessarily malicious, but maybe just being too focused on our own stuff.
Precisely. It's subtle, but really important. It often shows up as being more worried about, say, making a good impression or achieving a certain outcome than about genuinely trying to understand the other person.
Like, am I saying the right things? Do they like me? Yeah. Rather than, who are they?
Exactly that. It becomes about pursuing your own goal, getting the date, the relationship, whatever, instead of approaching it with real curiosity about them as a person. And the other person, they can often feel that. They might feel like less of a person and more of an objective,
And people pick up on that lack of presence, right?
Yeah.
That feeling that the other person isn't really with you.
Oh, absolutely. We're incredibly sensitive to it. If someone feels rushed or like they're not being heard or that the other person is just running through their own checklist, it creates unease. It blocks trust.
Yeah, you can't build attraction on that kind of shaky ground.
Not real, lasting attraction, no. You need that feeling of emotional safety first. Without it, the walls stay up.
Okay, so if impatience and maybe a bit too much self-focus are the pitfalls, what's the alternative? What does real, genuine connection actually require, according to this analysis?
Well, the core elements seem to be empathy, first and foremost, really trying to understand and share what someone else is feeling. Patience, as we said, letting things unfold, and an open heart, a kind of generosity.
Giving rather than just taking.
Yes, giving your attention, your understanding, waiting instead of pushing, valuing the connection itself more than, controlling the outcome. The main thing is truly seeing the other person for who they are, not just what you want from them or what they can do for you.
Which brings us back to Casanova. What seems to have set him apart was exactly that, his focus on the emotional connection, not just the physical side.
That's what the sources consistently point towards. His real strength, his magic, if you want to call it that, was how he connected emotionally. He was apparently an incredible listener, someone who could really empathize, make people feel truly heard, seen, understood, valued. When he interacted with women especially, it wasn't just superficial charm. He seems to have had this deep curiosity about their lives, their hopes, their dreams, even their struggles and pain.
Treating them like actual human beings, basically.
As complex individuals with their own stories, yeah.
Yeah.
Not just conquests waiting to happen.
And you combine that emotional sensitivity with his confidence, his ability to tell a story. You can see how that would be captivating.
It's a potent mix, isn't it? That ability to tune into someone's emotional world, understand what makes them tick, and maybe even weave narratives that resonate with those feelings. That was a huge part of his allure. It made the interaction feel personal, meaningful, deep.
His memoir, The Story of My Life, gets mentioned too. The suggestion is it shows maybe a more romantic side than the reputation suggests.
Well, yes, while we absolutely have to read historical accounts critically, especially something like an autobiography,
Sure.
the picture he paints of himself is often one of someone searching for love, for meaning, for that human connection. The information really emphasizes his knack for making people feel important, understood. That seems central.
So maybe the takeaway isn't just about seduction.
Maybe not primarily. Perhaps at his core, he was driven by that deeper need for affection, for purpose, for just connecting with people. It kind of reframes his legacy, doesn't it? Makes it more about empathy, about paying attention.
So we strick away the sensationalism. The core skill, the seduction, as he practiced it, was really about deep understanding.
That's the argument, yes.
Yeah.
That his fundamental gift was understanding people on a profound level. He seemed to have this almost intuitive ability to step inside someone else's emotional world, grasp their unspoken desires, and then reflect those back to them.
Reflect them back.
In a way that made them feel seen, validated. It created this intense feeling of intimacy, of being truly understood. It wasn't necessarily manipulation in a cold way, but more like a very advanced form of interpersonal awareness.
Okay, so how can we cultivate that? This idea of becoming an emotional mirror comes up. What does that actually mean?
It's a great analogy, isn't it? The idea is to connect, like he apparently did, you need to become more attuned, more responsive, like a mirror reflecting someone's emotional state.
So really paying attention to their mood, their energy.
Exactly. Being adaptable, trying to see beneath the surface stuff, to sense what they might be longing for, even if they don't say it. That desire we all have to be understood, maybe to feel a bit of excitement or escape from the everyday.
Which ties into that point about quiet dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
That maybe lots of people feel something's missing.
Precisely. Many people, maybe most people at times, carry this low-level sense of discontent. Like life isn't quite what they hoped or things have become monotonous, a feeling that something's lacking.
And they might hope someone else can fill that gap.
Consciously or not, yeah, there's often that hope that someone will come along and sort of wake them up, make things feel meaningful again. And this underlying vulnerability, this crack in the shell, as the source material calls it, that's often the starting point for a deeper connection. Sensing that loneliness or frustration or craving for something more.
So it's not about forcing your way in, but noticing what's already there and maybe gently bringing it to the surface. The sources mentioned using open-ended questions.
Right. Not accusatory questions, but gentle probes. Things like, do you ever feel like the days just repeat themselves? Or is this the life you imagined when you were younger?
Tricky questions.
They can be, but the intent isn't to make someone feel bad. It's more about turning their attention inward, towards their own desires, their own maybe dormant dreams or frustrations. It makes them aware of any emotional gaps.
And that prepares the ground.
It prepares the ground for a connection with someone who actually sees those gaps, who acknowledges those deeper longings, someone who seems to understand.
Okay, and then comes this idea of actually entering their world, becoming that mirror, by showing genuine interest in what they care about. That feels like the opposite of trying to impress someone.
It totally is. Most people tend to talk about themselves, right? Try to show off their knowledge or experiences. And we're often resistant to being told what to think or feel.
Sure.
Casanova's approach, apparently, was the reverse. He made it a priority to enter their world, learn their language, metaphorically speaking, share their interests, reflect their mood. If someone loves art, you show genuine interest in art. If they're spiritual, you explore that with them respectfully.
So it's not about pretending.
No, not about pretending. It's about making them feel like their world, their perspective matters, that it's interesting and valuable. It validates their identity. It creates emotional safety because you're meeting them on their turf.
And this taps into that need for validation we all have, that bit of narcissism.
Exactly. We all have that core need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to feel like we matter. Casanova seemed to understand this really well. By mirroring someone's values, their sense of humor, their passions, even their flaws sometimes, but without judgment.
You make them feel understood.
Deeply understood. It's like you're reflecting the best parts of them back at them. It strokes that psychological narcissism, as the sources put it. They see themselves reflected in you, and they start to feel warmth, affection, because you get them.
So you mirror their values, admire what they admire in themselves, maybe their independence or their passion.
Yes, and you tune into their emotional rhythm. Are they playful? Be playful back. Are they thoughtful? Engage thoughtfully. This kind of psychological alignment just melts away defenses. It encourages openness.
And it goes even further, not just mirroring who they are, but who they want to be, their ideal self.
That's a really powerful layer. Think about it. We often fall for people in whose presence we feel like the best version of ourselves. Casanova was apparently a master at this. He didn't just see the person in front of him, he saw their potential, the qualities they aspired to.
How would you even do that?
Through specific, sincere compliments. But not just, you look nice. More like noticing their mind, their spirit, their resilience, their compassion, things they might hope are true about themselves. When you reflect that ideal self back to them, that's incredibly attractive. It makes them feel seen on a whole different level.
And once you've established that deep connection, that mirroring, the dynamic shifts. It's less about trying to influence and more about resonance.
Exactly. Once someone feels truly seen and understood, they relax. Their emotional walls come down. Then influence happens more organically. It's not pressure, it's resonance. They start to naturally echo your moves, your energy, maybe even your ideas, because they feel safe and aligned with you.
So you can then share your passions, your confidence.
Yes, and because they're open and receptive, they'll likely mirror you back. It's this gentle back and forth exchange. The power dynamic shifts subtly, naturally, feeling like a shared dance rather than a push-pull.
And all this leads to creating what the sources call heightened emotional realities, like beautiful illusions. That sounds a bit manipulative.
It can sound that way, but the idea isn't necessarily about lying or false promises. It's more about using attention, empathy, and full presence to make moments feel special, vivid, meaningful, helping someone feel like they're the star of a beautiful, believable story, even just for a little while.
An escape from the ordinary.
Precisely. In a world that can feel routine or dull, offering an experience that feels heightened, where time maybe slows down, where they feel truly seen and appreciated, that's powerful. It's created through being intentional, using evocative language, being completely present, making moments memorable. Sincerity is key, though. Combined with that emotional attunement, it offers something rare.
So the real art isn't in grand gestures, but in how deeply you listen and how skillfully you reflect.
That seems to be the core message. Entering someone's spirit, as they say, without trying to conquer it. You don't have to be the smartest or best-looking person in the room.
Just the one paying the most attention.
Paying the most attention, seeing those hidden longings, mirroring their best self, making them feel alive again. That kind of attention is electric. It's unforgettable, especially in a world where genuine attention feels scarce.
So, listen, adapt, mirror, reflect their light back, until they feel deeply connected to themselves when they're with you.
That's a great summary of the process described, and it often starts by tapping into something deep, those unfulfilled dreams we carry.
Youthful dreams. Like what?
You know, most of us had dreams when we were younger, dreams of great love or adventure or making a difference or just deep, meaningful connection. Life often. Well, it brings compromises, disappointments. Maybe we stop believing those dreams are possible.
But the longing is still there somewhere.
Often, yes. Buried under routine or cynicism, but still there. And connecting with that, gently bringing those dormant dreams back into focus, that's another powerful starting point. It takes empathy, imagination, and a genuine wish to give someone an inspiring experience, not just take something from them.
So you listen deeply to find out what their specific fantasy or dream is.
Exactly. Everyone's is unique. Ask questions, pay attention to what lights them up, what makes their voice change. Then you gently reflect that fantasy back. Not in a creepy or manipulative way, but like you're someone who sees that dream in them and believes it still matters.
Like validating their hidden hope.
Precisely. Casanova apparently had this knack for treating each person like a rare, fascinating soul, making them feel unforgettable because he seemed to recognize their unique inner world. Sometimes it might mean stepping into a role that fits their dream, being the romantic soulmate, the understanding confidant, the partner in adventure.
It's about creating that beautiful illusion again.
Yeah, but illusion less in the sense of falsehood and more like art, creating an elevated reality for a time. Slowing things down, making experiences feel richer, more meaningful than everyday life. Small things can do this attentive silence, a truly specific compliment, remembering a detail they mentioned offhand.
And presence. Being fully there.
Absolutely crucial. Like Casanova being completely engaged in the moment with that person, that itself creates a kind of magic in our distracted world.
So again, it circles back. His seduction wasn't just looks or charm, but attention, empathy, making people feel beautiful inside by valuing their thoughts, fears, dreams.
That's the recurring theme, that kind of connection, that feeling of being deeply understood and appreciated for your inner self. That's rare, and that's what makes it so captivating.
It's not about being perfect either, is it?
Not at all. Most people aren't looking for perfection. They're looking to feel understood, to feel something real, showing up with genuine curiosity, wanting to nurture their spirit rather than impress them. That's often far more powerful.
It keeps coming back to entering their inner world gently.
Right. People are naturally guarded. We have our private fears, hopes, insecurities. Casanova's approach wasn't forceful. It was about curiosity. Entering her spirit, understanding her world, playing by her rules initially, stepping into her story instead of trying to drag her into his.
Empathy first. Always.
That's the starting point. Meet her where she is, create safety, allow her to soften and let you in. Then you can mirror her emotional tone, her rhythm, playful, serious, whatever it is, not pretending, but attuning.
Showing you're really listening.
And that you honor her inner world, being understood without having to explain everything. That's incredibly attractive. And showing genuine interest in her passions, her ideas that nurtures her need to feel special, admired, specific, thoughtful compliments that show you see her.
And all this lowers the guard, opens the heart.
Exactly. She moves from analyzing you to just feeling the connection. You've been invited into her emotional atmosphere, not as an intruder, but as a comforting, maybe even exciting presence.
And that's when influence grows naturally, because she feels understood.
Yes. She starts to open up more, share more. Trust builds, intimacy deepens, desire often follows. But it's an invitation she extends, based on that feeling of alignment and being seen. It's not forced.
So the whole approach is soft, slow, sincere.
Ideally, yes. It's not about control or technique in a cold sense. It's about compassion, curiosity about another person's inner world, and gently reflecting back the beauty and potential you find there.
Okay, so boiling it all down then. The key insight from this deep dive into Casanova isn't really about his reputation, is it? It's about his almost superpower in understanding people, empathizing, reflecting their own inner world back to them.
That's it, making them feel deeply seen, understood, cherished. That seems to have been his real power.
And for you, listening to this, maybe wanting to build more meaningful connections yourself, whether that's in your personal life or even professionally, this offers a pretty different path than just superficial chat, doesn't it?
A much deeper, potentially more rewarding path. It requires more effort, more presence, but the connections formed are likely to be far stronger.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. In a world that often feels so rushed, so transactional, what if the most powerful connection you could make today, the most impactful thing you could do, just started with slowing down, and truly seeing the person right there in front of you.
Really seeing them. It's a simple idea, but maybe profound in its implications.
Definitely something to think about. If this sparked your interest, we really encourage you to reflect on your own interactions. How could you bring more empathy, more mirroring, more genuine curiosity into them? And maybe dig into related topics like emotional intelligence or active listening. There's always more to explore there.